came into cycling probably the way a lot of cyclists did, where I was a runner. I got injured running, so I bought a bike to cross train. The injury kind of just stuck with me, didn't go away. So bought this stupid device they called a trainer, and I was in my basement in Connecticut back then, just grinding away 4 or 5 days a week and building up. Fast forward to about 7 years ago, we had moved to Dallas. As a lot of people there can attest to, also a full-time job, a full-time family, and to go full bore towards a goal of Kona or better in Ironman is it's hard to have all three. I don't know many of my friends back then who had all three. One of those three usually came out of the equation, and it seemed to a lot of times be the family, which it just was a non-starter for me. And then we moved to Dallas. The cycling community here is fantastic. Troy, I met him through the cycling community, and pretty much all my friends now ride bikes, and it's just it's what we do, right? We ride on the weekends, and then we have a beer or whatever it may be after, and it's a very social event. Ton of cyclists here. The cycling community itself, regards to the race scene, is fantastic. So it didn't take much to suck me in, all encompassing there. So I'm going on, I believe, my 5th year now of racing bikes, and call it the 7th year of just being a full-time roadie. So
yeah, so kind of like Mike, I got into cycling through injury, really. I was always way more into board sports and that sort of thing. And as you know, I grew up a little bit with Geoff. We were friends when we were teenagers and little punks together and all that. So we used to skate. And, I had dirt bikes when I was a kid, but not much in my teens. And I was real out of shape in my 20s, and in my early 30s, I got back into shape. I live real close to Mike, and the road cycling scene in Dallas is that is what it is. And there's tons of road cycling here, and it's just a lot more convenient and very competitive. I mean, Geoff, you lived here for, when you were younger and raced a lot, and just our crit scene here for a long period was just bonkers. And
Troy and I were just throwing the idea up there, and it didn't take long till we both said, yeah, sounds great. We knew it was fairly long and fairly dirty and fairly a lot of climbing, but at that point that was kind of secondary to just hanging out and doing the event. We had originally signed up for the 2020 Belgian Waffle Ride in San Diego. Obviously the world has changed since then, so that was canceled. My wife grew up there. She hasn't been back, or we haven't been back in probably close to 20 years. And I heard that town has just completely changed. Not that it was bad, but just whatever was great got even better. So it wasn't a very long decision, and it wasn't very deeply thought for something that it shouldn't be taken lightly.
Well, let's be clear. When Mike says something's not that deeply thought, he's thought about every possible aspect of it. So, he threw it out to me, and it sounded bonkers, but it sounded like, hey, San Diego in May. Yes. And, and I already get along really well with Mike. So that just sounded perfect to me.
Right now for me, it's just all about volume. I started getting the sweet spot recently just to extend that aerobic capacity before we really start to build upon it. I talked to my coach and I said, hey man, I don't think we'll be racing again in February, just with the way the world is right now. Let's just go with a traditional base season. Let's just go with 6 weeks of 20 hours plus, not much intensity, just grinding away, not poking around either, but just that spot where your heart rate is at, 65% of its max, 60% of its max, and just go all day. After we build off of this longer endurance phase, we're going to start to get into a little bit more of the climbing phase. And I think mid-March through the end of April is going to be a heavy focused climbing block for us, just to try to get those adaptations that we can't get as much as we want to climb Alpe du Zwift or whatever else there is options out there for us. It's not the same as getting out there on the real thing. So
nice thing on the flat part of Texas is we are always pedaling. I mean, during the ride yesterday, he's like, dude, we haven't stopped pedaling in hours. So you get that, but we don't have the elevation. And so in preparation for Belgian Waffle, as we get closer to the event, as he had mentioned, we're going to travel up to close to Arkansas, edge of Oklahoma, probably hit some of the mountains right there, and get used to climbing in the saddle, because of all the things that I'm fearful about with the Belgian Waffle, the elevation and the climbing of the event.
I'm running whatever Troy tells me to run. As much as Troy likes to, I don't know if I'd say knock on me, but he mentioned before that when I said it was an impulse decision for us to do Belgian Waffle, he called bullshit on it right away. On the bike, as much as I will dig in on the training and every pedal stroke and the purpose of it, that's it. I have no energy left at that point. So I just say, dude, what do I roll? 30? I've got the Allied All Road, which is their gravel light, if you will. It can run up to 35s on it. So I'll be running 35s or less.
So I'm hoping I can stay with road pedals, tubeless for sure. Top tube bag for quick gels, and then beta fuel in the bar bag, not saddle bag, the bar bag. And and I'm a 2x with a compact, and I will have 1-to-1. I'll have a 34 in the back, because in reading on the San Diego one, every single person, no matter what their level were, they all said, this was their exact wording. They said, every year I say I'm going to gear down and I never do. I will always run 1-to-1 from here on out.
Every race that I've walked back that I have the fondest memories of, I've said at some point in the race, why do I race bikes? Why can't I just ride bikes? Like, why do I have to do this? If we go out there and we're able to race this, and we're able to suffer like dogs, and we're able to go through some of those just dark parts, if it's the only weekend that you and I ever get to hang out and have a beer, there's definitely that connection that's created. There's that bond that's created through suffering that, for me, is kind of why I do it. It's invaluable. Even on these weekend rides, we go out, we punch each other a little bit on those rides occasionally, and then we all circle back and we got on someone's patio and we have a beer and you exchange those war stories. And man, that's just what creates those bonds, right? At the end of the day, when the sun sets for all of us, that's what we're going to look back on. Those are the memories that are created. And the ties that suffering, I think, creates is just, it's fantastic. It's what makes life.
Right.